All right. Guess this tune. I hope it's picking it up.
The
All right.
last great wrestling and well, that Nitro tune was pretty cool that they
Um,
came up with towards the end. I didn't like that last theme song though.
so,
So if you can
so
guess that song,
yeah, Chris Bradshaw. He got the last one we played. It was NW. It was the theme from NWA Pro Wrestling. So we'll take his question first.
and thank you for waiting patiently with bated breath for us to return to the airwaves. We've been busy while he's got a mint of some kind.
Okay. Um, Chris Bradshaw. Theme is from NWA Pro Wrestling. Um, Appointment television on Saturday mornings at 11. Growing up in Richmond, Virginia. I actually watched a little documentary on some
Richmond,
town in
Virginia.
West Virginia today.
Wheeling?
No,
Morgantown?
no. Dang it, I can't remember the name.
West Virginia?
I do have a few questions for you, so
Okay.
let's just go one by
Let's
one.
amp this up a little bit. Hello out there.
All right. What was your dad's from Chris Bradshaw? What was your dad's proudest achievement in his career?
You know, in later years when Dad would be in independent dressing rooms for some reason, I don't know why he was there. Guys would ask him, try to pick his brain for things, and the thing that guys would say is, "What advice do you have for me?" Dad would always say, "Stay straight with the IRS and save your money." And they look at him kind of strange. Dad was like, "What do you think I was going to tell you about a hold or a goofy outfit or something?"
Mm.
Which you can come up with. I mean, you have no say in what you do anymore because some suit puts you in something who's never actually kissed a girl or been in a fight. But I digress here. Guys would ask Dad, "Was there any particular match that stood out?" And Dad would go, "Not really." They'd say like Texas Stadium, the door slam, the Dusty turn, and Dad'd be like, "No." He told the story that told me later in life. In Fort Worth, Texas, when Dad first got here, I think it was like 1905 when Dad first got here. Uh, he was working at the Northside Coliseum, and it was very, very odd for it because this is like Texas in the mid to late 60s, so segregation was still pretty heavy. And at the Northside Coliseum, it was very rare for a white guy to wrestle a black wrestler, which that rarely ever happened at all. And Dad wrestled, I think it was either Tiger Conway Senior or Bearcat Wright or one of them at the old Northside Coliseum or the Cowtown Coliseum. So if you're strolling through Fort Worth one day and you see the Cowtown Coliseum, that is, in fact, the Northside Coliseum is in the north side of Fort Worth. So Dad wrestled Bearcat Wright or Tiger Conway Sr., and my guy just didn't do that. And back in those days, because like we said, it was segregated in Texas in like the mid 60s, 1966, 1967, 67. Dad wrestled a black gentleman, and there was a segregated section of the building where all the black folks were sitting. And Dad went out there and wrestled, and of course, I'm sure did a job, which he always did. The only guy that would go over when Dad would be out there was if he was Uncle Donald's tag team partner. So Dad ended up having the match, and he left because he told the promoters, "I don't really care. I'll wrestle black. I'm from Chicago. It doesn't matter to me." So he had the match, and then as he's walking up the aisle, the entire section of black folks stood up, and Dad's a heel, and they gave him a standing ovation, like, "All right, Gary, appreciate you." And that was always the thing that stood out in his mind. I mean, because you like his Uncle Mark would say, "How many names, how many matches?" You have so many of them that occasionally. I mean, what are you gonna say? Green Mist.
Yeah.
But no, that was the one that really stood out with him because Dad was always, you know, the black folks always. I mean, if there was going to be a fan that was mean or antagonistic, it was normally going to be a white person. But the black fans, the black folks, the brothers and sisters, they really seemed to get behind Dad. I mean, it was always a positive interaction with them most of the time.
Yeah. I think Dad one time told me his proudest achievement was Muda. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. Okay.
No, I think.
Was he drinking?
Yeah, I think probably.
No, that was. I mean, that was a great accomplishment considering the framework in which we had to do it in. But it just ended wrong.
I do remember him. I do think he was proud of Muda. I
Well,
remember
how
him.
could you not be? You took a guy who had no direction, you repackaged him.
I remember he after the Thunderdome match with Muda and Funk and Sting and Flair.
Mm-hmm.
There was something that happened where the cage was supposed to have been electrified.
Yeah, the burlap sack that was over all that stuff.
And the sack caught on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before the match started.
Yes.
And I remember Kenji went up and blew the green mist on the fire and put it out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Dad saying, he goes, I was so proud of him.
That
When he
tells
did
you
that.
that the green mist was not part of the finisher. He wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Or that thing would still be on fire some 36 years later.
I think he was really proud of the spoiler because I think
Absolutely. That was
the
his
one that put
first
him on.
creation.
That was the one that put him on the map.
Yeah, and because Uncle Donald was really, really difficult to deal with, because remember, he had been in the business for a good 10 years by the time he got with Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been lied to and held down and didn't really trust anybody.
Go ahead.
And Dad, he met him the first time going back to Amarillo after he had a falling out here with Fritz the first time. And when he came back through here the second time, Fritz said, "Is there anybody you'd like to bring with you?" Dad goes, "Well, I hit it off with this guy named Don Jordine in Amarillo. I'd like to bring him in." And so Uncle Donald came down here, and Dad ran it by him. He goes, "Here's what we're going to try to do." And then him and Fritz sat there and talked. He said, "We're going to do the mask, and we're going to take like the glove, and we're going to give you a different type of gimmick." And Uncle Donald went, "Okay, if it don't, we'll give it 6 weeks. If it don't work out, then I'll just go back to Los Angeles," which is what he was going to do. But he ended up staying.
Yeah.
That was Dad's proudest career, because I told Dad this years. This was like '94, I think, because Uncle Donald, Dad, even when Dad left the business, he still talked about Uncle Marky, Mark Lewin, Uncle Donald, Brody. He still talked about everybody a lot. So it was very odd for him not to be talking about them. But I remember one time we were talking about Uncle Donald. I said,
That's the spoiler.
I said, of all of them, he's the only one that did more for you than you did for him, as far as like managing him and things like that. And Dad was like, "Yeah, you're right," and that's the truth, because if there is no Uncle Donald, no spoiler. If the spoiler don't get over, Fritz don't become a successful promoter, and Dad doesn't. Dad doesn't become the kingpin in wrestling that he became.
I think he was very proud of how of the Von Erich.
Absolutely.
Like how, like in their formative years, like Dad, I think was booking their matches.
He was.
Yeah. So he was very proud of that. That he kind of, match booked them against, yeah.
Because Dad would say years later, those are my boys. Mm-hmm. Like he would call, if you were one of his my boys, it'd be the Von Erichs, that'd be Brody, that'd be Chris, Gino, Dusty, guys like that.
So he also asked, was your dad able to enjoy wrestling strictly as a fan, or did he always view it from a business perspective?
Always viewed it like he was still involved, because when we would watch the TV, and once he got out, even when he quit Atlanta in WCW '90, as upset and as mad as he was when he left at the end, he still always watched both New York and Atlanta. He would always watch the TV show, and he would say, "See, this needs to be like this. This needs to be like this. This needs to be like that." He told me one time years later, he goes, "I'm no longer involved, but I look at it like I still am." And a lot of times he could say, "This is probably what they're going to do." Mm-hmm. And that's normally what they ended up doing. He goes, "Here's what I would do, but that's not what they're going to do. They're, speaking of WCW, they're going to do this." Right. And then he'd be watching some of those tapes in like 90, 91, and they'd do some, and Dad would go, "Oh, why?" And he would it would visibly upset him.
Yeah, and it was interesting too that he still obviously, I think his eye was even sharper.
Oh yeah.
Kind of taking a step back from it.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's something to be said, like when you're in the mix, mm-hmm. like when you're, I don't know, but when you're in the dressing rooms and you're making friendships with guys, it could kind of cloud your judgment.
Yes.
Whether or not, this guy really has what it takes to get over.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just kind of watching it as setting it as a fan,
mm-hmm.
All that personal feelings is set aside, and you can really, just the way he could still have the eye for talent. Like just the second he saw Bill Goldberg, he's like, this guy's going to be a big name. He still had an eye.
Like the first time he saw Scott Hall, I mean, in '89, he's like, this guy can make money. And then when he saw him come in as a Diamond Stud, Dad goes, this is a good look for this guy. And when Nash, right before he went to New York, Dad goes, this guy can draw money now. When he saw Hunter the first time, he's like, this guy, that if they would get behind this, they'd really have something. Like X-Pac, all those guys, when he would see them when they were young, he was like, this right here. But when he left, I think, in all honesty, when he left with Muta, the end of, and I hate to say Gary Hart, the manager, or Gary Hart / wrestler, but when he left in '89, Gary Hart, the guy going to the ring, it was probably time within a year or so for that to stop anyway. But as far as Gary Hart, the booker, matchmaker, I think he still had another 4 or 5 great years of really cool stuff he could have done. But as far as Gary Hart, the manager, the guy going, I'm not going to say character or gimmick, that guy, it was probably time for him to go within another year or so anyway.
Yeah, so I guess the answer to the question would be
And also too, that's why he liked doing things like cooking and reading, because you have a chance to cut it off.
yeah.
Like Nash and Shawn Michaels were saying once, you're on so often. You got to find some way to just
Yeah.
unplug, because if you don't, I mean, you still got to be in it, but there's got to be a little bit of time to where you can just get away from it for a while.
So I guess Chris, the answer to the question is he always viewed
He
it from
always looked at it like he was still
business
involved, because one time
perspective.
he told me word for word, I'm no longer involved, but I look at it like I still am. And I mean, he still took it very, very seriously. When he would see young guys that he thought were really, really good get held down, or not really held down, but misused, it bothered him tremendously.
Okay, so his next question for you two gentlemen: what are the 3 greatest matches you have ever seen? These are good questions.
These are excellent questions. We have a smart audience.
3 greatest matches I've ever seen. I would say for me, I think the one that stands out is Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair from Texas Stadium, just because it was a great match, obviously, but it was one of those matches that it kind of became more than a match. You know, the people were so emotionally connected to the Von Erichs that it was almost like it was just more than, I don't know how to explain it,
If
but
that ended any other way than that, it would have been a disappointment.
yeah, it was just yeah. And then I don't have 3, but the 2 that come to mind, man, I think, dude, and people may disagree with me, but Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, dude. How can, I mean, that was like huge, dude. 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome. Hulk was, so, I mean, those were just larger than life matches. You know, they were better than, uh,
The match at the Corky and Hall where 12
what?
people saw it.
Yeah, I mean, those were just larger than, I mean, that was like bigger than the business, you know, sense. You know, it was like, wow, you know. Anyways, that's 2. The third one, man, I'd have to think more on that.
I can go into your Bret Hart catalog.
I remember I met Arn Anderson several times, man. I'm such a fan. As I grow older, I'm
You
such a
become more of a-
fan of Arn Anderson's work. I was probably, I don't
Well,
know,
he was a master. When I think
so
ring general, that term that term doesn't get thrown around anymore because nobody knows what it means because nobody does it. When I heard that term ring general, Arn, Ted DiBiase, Bill
yeah.
Eadie, those are the names. Larry Zbyszko, those are the first names that really come up when I think of that term, because Arn was one of the last of them.
So what are your 3?
As far as 3 greatest matches, Ricky Flair and Kerry Von Erich, the one from Reunion Arena, not that one, but
What's that? Like, if people don't understand what you're
the
doing.
door slam.
Oh, right.
Which I doubt. Once again, I doubt that was the first time a door was ever slammed on anybody's head in a cage match. But the impact of it, far-reaching. So to this day, the social ramifications of that one, I think, are still being felt. The one that we did August of '82, it was the best 2 out of 3 falls, where Ricky lost to Kerry with the Iron Claw. It was only Kerry was the only one who won a fall in that particular match, and that set up the thing with where the Von Erich's going to be able to get their own type of rules with it played into it.
Okay.
The 2, because it has a real rocky, the first one, a real rocky feel to it if you watch it. It's on YouTube somewhere. And I think they put it on that second Ric Flair collection that New York did about 15 years ago. The second one would probably be second.
Wow, you talked about this for like 2 weeks.
I know, and
I
too many chair
he was
shots.
excited to answer this question.
Too many chair shots. What was the second one?
I don't know, dude. You want to come back to it?
No, because I know I can get this. The second one would be
Is it Dusty Rhodes and something?
no, it was I want to say
Okay.
no, I want to say it was Sean and Taker in the cell the first time that they ever did that. That was, that had epic proportions. That was like one of those matches where even if you weren't it was 2 guys that, like, you always had your guys that, like Rock and, Austin and other guys like that who transcended the business, but then there were certain guys that just meant the business. Sean and Taker were 2 of those guys. So those, that's just that match right there. Because you take a concept of a cage match, which wasn't by any means new, but this was like an exciting cage match.
Yeah.
And we hadn't had one of those in years. and probably the third one. And a lot of
We
people,
can come back to it.
a lot of people are going to be upset with me on this one. Macho Man and
Oh,
the
that's
Warrior
right. You were
from
saying that.
WrestleMania 7, because that, I mean, I was a heavy mark for that program.
Wow.
That was so. Those are my three. Ricky and Kerry from '82 at reunion August '82, not this one. Sean and Taker in the first Cell match, and also the Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage from WrestleMania 7.
All right, Chris Bradshaw. Thanks for your questions. You got the theme song question right. Sorry, we don't have anything to give you. But yeah,
I
got any
have a
more?
Fritz von Erich taken by force Zippo
Any more?
somewhere.
Any more questions? We'd like to have them because we need things to talk about.
Yeah, we need things to talk about.
Lazman, next up,
My man.
our guy. Hey guys, I definitely want to hear some Skandar Akbar stories. This is interesting. Also, what did you think at the time and now of when the One Man Gang went to the WWF and they turned him into Akeem the African Dream? I remember him teaming with the Big Boss Man, but thought it would have been so much better as the Big Boss Man and the One Man Gang. Yeah, totally agree. I just remember, I was like 8 years old when that happened. I remember watching it. We were on vacation. First time I ever saw it, we were on vacation visiting Dad's family. We were in Benton, Illinois. Um, and we weren't on Halstead Street in Chicago. His brother lived in Benton, Illinois. And I remember, and Uncle Guy, my dad's brother, that was like if I remember right, my first exposure to New York, to the WWF, because Uncle Guy watched New York because he was up north.
But they had USA Network.
Yeah, I
And
know.
they got the Memphis TV.
Yeah, but anyways, so
that was your first exposure to the WWF?
No, I was just saying going before that. I'm saying no. By the time One Man Gang was in WWF, yeah. But I'm saying like back in like 1984, visiting Uncle Guy would have been my first exposure. My first memory of WWF was like Roddy Piper and Bob Orton Jr.
Yeah, that's a hell of an impression.
Well, I mean,
that would have left an impression on anybody.
So, I remember watching. It was they were running the vignette, I guess is what they call it now, of where Slick went and found him, and they were like standing in an alley, and right,
yeah.
And I just remember seeing it, and it's like I was kind of reacting off of Dad's reaction. And I think Dad, he wasn't upset. He wasn't mad. He was just kind of like, this is ridiculous. Well, and, he was like, this is ridiculous. But in Moon's defense, One Man Gang's defense, he took the money. I mean, what are you going to do? Say no? And then
after a while, he did.
Yeah, but that was 2 more years. Another 2 years.
But him and Ray were a good team.
Or 3 years. So,
but now,
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, and like you said, One Man Gang would have been way better. But anyways,
the irony of that all is, number one, it was another shot at Dusty to call him Akeem the African Dream.
Right.
And then and I don't know if this was a rib. It was somehow thought maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But Slick, a very, very nice man. They changed it. They changed his name to Slick because One Man Gang used to call Dad Slick here. And the oddest thing is, Slick, before he got into wrestling, he actually worked at the same trucking freight company that my uncle, my mom's brother, used to work at. Oh, yeah. Which is just, this is just all, that's the irony of it all. But as far as Akeem the African Dream, I don't know. Maybe Vince didn't like the tattoos on the side of the head. Maybe that was a little too street for him, and maybe for the censors. I don't know. But I thought Moon was great as the One Man Gang. He was good as far as a big man. He was incredible.
And it shows how good he was because when he went up there, they immediately put him with Hogan.
Yeah.
I mean, that One Man Gang was.
Think of all the money he could make with John Cena if John were like 20 years younger.
Yeah, he was.
And Slick's a very nice guy. I've met him several times. Wonderful guy. Love Moon to death. He's a member of the family. And as far as the African Dream, him and Ray made a lot of money doing that. They were a good team.
Skandar Akbar stories.
Oh, I've said this before several times. Scan was one of the few guys that got over that was nothing like you thought he was when you were in person.
I was scared to death of him.
And he was such...
when I was trying to think when I stopped being scared of Skandar. I probably like 2 or 3 years ago.
Really? The thing with him was, normally, if you're a heel and you work against another heel, it's odd, certain heels become the baby faces whenever they work with you. Like if let's say if the Freebirds would have worked against Dad's guys,
Mm.
they would have been the baby faces. If the Freebirds worked against Devastation, they became the baby faces. When Dad worked against Devastation, Dad became the baby face, which was very, very odd. That says a lot for Scan. And when we came back here for the David Memorial in '84, and Dad and Song worked against
You
Kamala
want to tell
and
who Song is?
Kabuki. If all of you are real Gary Hart fans, when I
Dude,
say
there
Song
might be people there's not.
I
They're
mean,
just watching.
well, I mean, if you mean someone else who doesn't want, no, you mean a non-wrestling
just
fan who's
saying.
sitting here watching us?
I don't even
My,
think
we have a
wrestling.
high opinion of ourselves
No, I'm
this afternoon.
saying like maybe wrestling
Wow,
fans.
that's incredible. You see, like someone one of Vince's people. Our fans aren't wrestling fans. There's 5,000 NWO T-shirts out there at '98. Are we selling them at the merch table? Anyway, what I was saying, when they went out and worked with Kamala and Skandar, Dad got the huge pop at the end. And then as Dad's up the aisle, this is about 10 minutes after the match. We're going up the aisle at Old Texas Stadium. And then there, I just wander up the aisle. Me and Mom wander up the aisle. And Dad is standing there in the tunnel, and his eyes are kind of watering.
Scanders?
No, Dad's.
Oh.
And Dad's like, they still remember me. They love me.
Really?
Still, yeah.
Where was this at? I
Texas
wasn't paying
Stadium.
attention to you.
Well,
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I would hate to give you
an
involved, intricate finish for a match. Be like, what was it? I don't know.
Go ahead. That's a good. I never knew that. What happened?
You were there.
I was 4.
I was 6. After a while, this ends.
Go ahead. Okay, so.
Well, I mean, you're still hung up on the fact that I called Kabuki Song, and apparently nobody knows who that is.
Dad, you and Mom were walking up the aisle. Where was I? I was about to say where was I? Was 4. I was hoping. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, we were sitting on.
I remember.
Yeah, I was sitting with some girl, in like the 3rd or 4th row behind the ringside area when the match is going on. And then
so was Chris Adams.
Yes, absolutely, I was. I've always told you people that life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Yeah, Chris, I lost count of how many times you told us that. So, if you never mind, posture and charisma development, interviews, show preparation. So, anyway, Dad and Kabuki, they work with Scan and Kamala, and the match ends. And Dad gets that huge pop at the end. And then, this is about 5-10 minutes later. You, me, and Mom, we leave our chairs on the back side of the back of the end zone, Texas Stadium. We go up the aisle, and Dad is standing there, kind of like his eyes are kind of watering. He's kind of like moved. Daddy goes, because he had left here under very, very bad circumstances. I think everyone in wrestling knows about the story. It's been told, overtold, and probably over exaggerated. But he comes back here, and they get that huge pop, and he's like, "They still remember me. I moved." And then he looked at Bronk. He goes, "Bronk, not bad for 36." Bronk went, "Who's 36?" Dad was, I think, 41 by that time.
Yeah.
No, 42 by that time. Dad goes, "Hey, Bronk, not bad for 36."
I remember one time, Skandar.
That's my biggest memory of Scan, because he turned the crowd in Dad's favor.
A lot of times wrestlers would just walk by you, like give you a chop or something like that. And Scan one time I was next to him, and he like went to put his riding crop in my stomach. And I was like, "Oh man, he's gonna hurt me." And then I didn't feel anything. So, anyways,
I just remember when he would be out there with Dad, people actually, he was a strong enough presence out there that they would actually boo him and cheer Dad. So, I mean, if Dad doesn't get that kind of response from the audience, from the crowd, if Scan isn't over to that point, because Scan was he's very tremendously underrated and had a lot of heat and really didn't have to do that much.
Scan had a ton of heat.
He was a wonderful man and was always. My dad liked working with him a lot because Dad, got to be the good guy occasionally. So that's another memory I have of Scan, and that and cigar smoke.
Yes, Gogamigo. Any interesting wrestling memorabilia from your dad you could tell us about? We didn't. We moved so much. We don't have
Well, the stuff that we ended up getting years later was stuff that we had back then, and we had it back then, but we don't have it anymore. But then we now have it again because people sent it to us. If that makes any sense.
No.
Okay, we had it back in the '80s.
Oh.
We I remember having stuff.
Well, like what is it? What like?
Programs and posters. I have a few here and there,
But yeah,
but
really,
really, I mean, it was. We never thought it was going to end. So one program would come in, and then the next week it would go out because Dad would always bring that home with him.
Yeah.
We weren't collecting. Dad goes, let's show it to the kids.
And also too,
and videotapes.
I was thinking about this the other night.
DVDs.
Back then, I don't think any of them would have ever thought like that. I don't know how to put it. Like they were just, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, me neither.
Sorry, Gogamigo.
But no, I do have stuff, but it's stuff I remember from having back then, but I didn't keep it from back then. The way I have it now is people have sent it to